Well, Shari, thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us. It's been really cool to see how God has been faithful to use you over the years here and investing your life in people. And I mean, ultimately, that's what's so awesome to see the fruit of God's work through you, whether it be at Good News Clubs or whether it be through your family in India or different things that God's been doing. It's really awesome to just hear the backstories from people of how they even came to be here at CBC and how they came to know the Lord. So that's kind of the first question I have for you is, how did you come to know Jesus? What were the circumstances around that, and how did you come to know him?
Yeah, so I wasn't raised in a Christian home, loving but not Christian. And so in high school, I attended a Young Life meeting just because it was fun and I was all about fun. And while I was there, I was really struck by my ski buddy friend who talked about Jesus in such a familiar way. And that was just foreign to me. And it was in a house, not even a church. And so that started my search. And read an autobiography where she explained what it meant to be a Christian was to have Christ in one. And that was new information for me, that Christianity was about him being inside of me, receiving him into my life, not just trying to be a good person. And so I prayed for the first time in my life, and he entered my life and over the months became the center of my life. And then God faithfully led me to some healthy churches to help me grow in my faith and my relationship with him. So that's how it started. I was about 18.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah. Well, and I know that I know personally people that you invest in your life and discipling and caring for. And how did that become a passion of yours, or how were you discipled in that way, or how did you arrive on that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I think back, and I left my home and went away to college, and I didn't know anything about the Bible. I was just a newbie. Yeah. And so this woman approached me and said, "Shari, would you like to meet with me every week to study the Bible?" And I said, "Would I ever?" I mean, I was just clueless, right?
Yeah.
And so this sweet woman took me under her wing and met with me every week. Yeah. And we studied scripture. She taught me how to share my faith, how to depend on God's Spirit rather than, just being self-effort kind of thing, religion. She taught me how to grow in my relationship with Jesus. And so I think by example, the impact that she had on me has stirred me. And then I had another woman after that. So I really have been blessed, probably because God knew I needed help, because I was so vulnerable and didn't know what was right or wrong or truth, And so probably because of my experience, it's inspired me to give that to others.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Thank you.
I mean, that same thing for me of being a clueless teenager and having someone pursue me and say,
True.
"Hey, do you want to hang out?"
Is that true? That happened with you too?
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. One of my oldest brother, one of his best friends was at UCLA and was home for the summer. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to go for a run with me?" Okay. He's like, "Oh, there's this scripture I know that's for physical trainings of some value, but spiritual trainings of the utmost value. Do you want to memorize the Bible with me while we do that?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, of course I do." So I mean, I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but
lovely.
He pursued me, and I've been blessed in that same way of people that have invested their lives in me, and I'm humbled and overjoyed by that, of how people have cared for me. It's really cool. I've seen that modeled in your family, even a heart for the lost, a heart for those outside of the church. Where has God worked in your life that's given you that heart for those that are outsiders or on the fringe? I feel like that's something that I see so evident in your life. Where has God been at work to reveal that to you, to put that on your heart?
Yeah, so I think that my own experience, of course, I know what it's like not to have a relationship with Christ. And so that inspires me, because of what he's filled in me, inspires me to want to give that to other people. Mm-hmm. So part of it's just my own experience, that I'm grateful for. And so I want to pass it on. When you have something good, you want to, you want to pass on, whether it be a good recipe or, you want to pass it on to share with other people.
Unless it's a really good recipe, then you hold it.
Absolutely. I love to eat too. And I think probably what has inspired me is hearing other people's stories of what they've done and how they've done it. That inspires me. That stirs my desire to do that. I mean, obviously, I'm inspired by the privilege of being called an ambassador of Christ. In 2 Corinthians, they talk about us being ambassadors for Christ as believers. That's a pretty inspiring title or gift.
Yeah.
But I think in the practical, day by day, I'm inspired when people tell me their stories of how they've shared with their everyday people, friends, and then I'm inspired to follow and learn from them. Yeah, probably those things.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I love that God never works the same way. He always answers our prayers in a completely different way. So it's like, can we replicate that process? No. The answer is no. No, because he wants us to rely on him and not on our systems.
Good point.
So I think that's so fun when you do hear, oh my gosh, that's what God is doing in that person's life or in that person's life, or how he's using that situation. And it's always something new.
You're so right. And then the recipient's different. So wanting to, Jesus met the needs of the people, and the needs varied, and how he addressed the religious leaders versus the Samaritan woman or whatever. And so same way, you just inspired me to think, about this, that it's just so true, depending on who you're sharing with or talking with or wanting to share God's love with, it's going to be, their needs are different. And so catering to that, being sensitive to that.
Yeah. And I think it kind of comes along too of seeing them not as a project, but as a person.
That's right.
I think that sometimes we as believers can get caught up in that of like, okay, this is my project, and if I failed in that project, I move on to the next project.
Yeah.
Instead of that long love that God has for us, and the long suffering that God has for us in caring for people. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I love that.
What's a story that you have of where God has used you that you maybe even you didn't expect him to use you in that situation or circumstance? What's some of the things that God has done through you?
It'd be fun to share a story. I like that. Yeah. I'd love to share you with. I'm going to share one story. Sure. Because this person that I met has become a person, and definitely not a project, definitely a person. Her name's Dasha, and Dasha is a woman that I met at last year's making of wreaths at Sutter Street. Oh, sweet. And so I just did the simple thing of engaging in conversation with her. I just came literally next to her and started commenting on her wreath and complimenting her choices. And then she had a little son next to her. Oh, what's his name? And how old is he? How cute. And engaging with her son. So it was just everyday conversation, just asking her about herself. Come to find out, she had just come here from Belarus 2 months before this event and was just, swirling in how to adjusting to our country. And her English was broken, but we communicated enough, and we exchanged contact information. And our friendship continues to this day. Last week we just had met him at the park, had a picnic together with she and her husband and son, and had lunch together. And so it's challenging because of the language barrier and my hearing loss, but we're hacking our way through it and just loving them. Helped them do their taxes last year. Pat did, and so we're just kind of choosing to be their friend and help them in tangible ways at this point. And as language gets to be stronger on their part, perhaps we can go deeper in our conversations. But so Dasha's the first person that comes to mind when you ask that question of a specific example. Yeah. And it was just normal conversation. It wasn't anything profound or theological. Yeah. It was good.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the Christmas wreath building is just seeing everyone interacting with our community, with random strangers that are going, oh, I want to build a wreath. And man, it's a hit. Like it's crazy how many people come, but it's really cool to see our people from our church that love Jesus loving on people and just trying to bridge the gap,
Yes. So, just fun. Engaging in conversation.
But that's cool how far God's allowed that to go through you of going to the park and investing in that relationship. That's
Well,
huge.
and I'm grateful, Paul, because she's benefiting me. I'm learning things about immigrants.
Hmm.
I'm learning from her the challenges that are there. So it's really been a two-way street.
Yeah, I imagine. And that's one of the things that I love is that we are the church. We're the hands and feet that God has called to be here. And that's our purpose, is to be his ambassadors, just like you said, and that we get to represent him. So I wanted to ask, how do you see, what does that look like, that the church, what does it look like for the church to reach out to people? What does that look like?
I think can be opportunities like at the Wreath building, opportunities where the verse that comes to mind is, they'll know we're Christians by our love. So if my non-believing friends can have an opportunity to see me with my believing friends and see the bond that we share, I think Jesus can be seen in that. So I think that's the kind of the way that together we can represent Jesus. But individually, as different members of the body, I think it can be just showing an interest in other people's lives, just putting other people before ourselves, asking people, tell me your story. I have invited my neighbors over and just tell me your story. Everybody's got a story, and just taking an interest in other people's lives, I think is a way that we can show God's love to people. We're not all about ourselves and caught up in our own lives. We're thinking of other people. Other-centeredness. That's what Jesus did, always caring about other people, even when he was hungry and tired. Wow. So yeah, just going to a friend's, next week I'm going to a friend who's not a believer, her son's soccer game. I mean, just taking an interest in other people's lives, everyday stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful reminder,
Yeah.
That to be engaged in wherever God has planted us.
Yeah.
So whether that be, with your neighbors or with whatever we're invested in, just to be fully engaged, to see people and see and to empathize, to recognize what they're going through, and pray that God would bridge the gap, that he would use us to do that. So,
and I'm thinking, as we're showing an interest in their life, you are then making yourself available for those teachable moments, when they are in points of need or desire, or you've made the connection, you're friends, you've showed you care, and it's not conditional. And then when they have a need, I dare say you might be the one, I hope anyway, that I'd be the one they'd call if they need a meal delivered, or if they need somebody to just hear their pain, whatever. So that's my prayer and desire. Yeah.
Well, we are blessed to have you as a part of our church body, and I'm so thankful for your heart for Jesus. And so I'm glad. Thanks for hanging out and doing this video with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.